So before I even get started in on this video, let me just say two things. Number one, I logged thousands of hours, hundreds of days played into Destiny 1, and I've logged an equally ridiculous amount of time into Destiny 2 since its release. That being said, let me also address the fact that prior to the launch of the Curse of Osiris DLC, I had not played Destiny 2 for 3 weeks to a month, which is my longest dry spell of not having played Destiny at all since the time between the end of Destiny 1's reign and the launch of Destiny 2. Now, this anomaly in my gameplay habits came from a mixture of things, among which would be more appealing games, other games coming out, but also the fact that not only did Destiny 2 seemingly lack content, but the content that was there was somewhat lackluster. It did not appeal to me in the sense that I wanted to play the game. It appealed to me in the sense that I wanted to get it done every week for the sake of maybe leveling up a character, and once that had been accomplished, I had virtually no reason whatsoever to play Destiny 2 anymore. Now, this came from a variety of reasons. Although I had not completed every single challenge and every single possible milestone that you could possibly do in the game, I had still lost interest in the game as I felt that there was nothing to do. Trials of the Night no longer appealed to me, as it seemed as though every weekend I was just logging in and playing with the same team of 4, using the same 2 guns, mainly Mida Multitool and Uriel's Gift, every single weekend, and this eventually loses its luster when all you feel like you need to do is win is use the same 2 guns against everyone else using the exact same 2 guns, and the game becomes too predictable and ultimately not fun and worth playing. Now, none of this is to say that there was anything bad about Destiny 2. The way Trials of the Nine, although I still do miss the format of Trials of Osiris, was something that I enjoyed a lot. I liked playing with 4 people, and I liked the variation of game mode and map that came with each week of the game mode. I had no problems to go along with the raid. I enjoyed the raid. I thought it was all very original ideas, and I enjoyed the gameplay that came with beating the raid, and I still felt some sort of sense of accomplishment when I beat the raid on the prestige mode and even the normal mode. However, as is the case with all good things, it must come to an end, and I eventually reached a point where the feeling of accomplishment had gone or decreased to the point where I no longer had any utility from playing Destiny 2. I simply felt no sense of accomplishment for beating any of the things that were end-game content. I also was not stimulated by the game whatsoever. I found there was no new content, there was nothing revolutionary for me to play or to use, and so all I could do was wait for the DLC to come out. Now, I played Curse of Osiris from just about the minute that it launched, and although I enjoyed the DLC a lot, I also had a lot of complaints about the way that the story mode played out and just the way that the content played out in general. And while it was nowhere near the flop that the Dark Below was in Destiny 1 Year 1, it certainly was no Rise of Iron with its content addition to the game. Now, before I get into anything, let me just say that I think that Destiny 2 on its own is significantly better than Destiny 1. Let me also follow that up with, that's no excuse. You don't get to say, well, we did better than we did in Destiny 1, so, this is about as good as you're going to get. You get what you get and you don't pitch a fit, because in the gaming community, we all know that that's not how that works. EA certainly knows that that's not how that works. Or at least they do know that they've lost a few $billion in stocks, but that's a video for another day. My point is that when Destiny 2 came out, I was extremely excited, and I was not disappointed entirely at the time that I bought the game, because I had plenty of content to play, I had plenty of story to involve myself in, and I actually genuinely enjoyed playing through the story, playing through the new raid, playing Trials of the Nine, and experiencing all of this new content that had been created for this new game, all of the new strikes, the new milestone system, and although there are parts of the game that I would certainly complain about, such as the shader system, I hate the shader system, and I hate that at the very least there is no way to mass dismantle shaders, but that is not enough to ruin the game entirely for me. I had very mixed feelings about the token faction ranking up system, and recently that was addressed in the form of now being able to buy the gear directly from the vendors if you have tokens and legendary marks, which in my opinion is an adequate solution to the problem. However, this should have been implemented in the vanilla game. And this is just barely the tip of the iceberg of Destiny's new systems that have been implemented for the second game, and I'm not going to get into that today. I'm just going to get into what I liked and did not like about Curse of Osiris and what it addressed and what it didn't address that it should have addressed. Let me start first and foremost with something that I immediately thought of once I had beaten Curse of Osiris' main story, and that's that our Guardian seems to be capable of way more than any other Guardian, and that sort of makes the world detached from the player and a little bit unrelatable at times. It seems like every single enemy that the player that goes up against is this unrealistically powerful enemy capable of destroying entire human armies and entire planets and colonies and cities, and we seem to just wipe them out in about a 3.5 minute boss fight as if it's nothing, even when we're not at max power level. Although Crota and Oryx did require raids to fully finish off, as well as Atheon, even though Atheon didn't really have too much of a background to him, as this was vanilla Destiny 1 and nothing had a background to it, there are several enemies that we've beaten that seem to me as though they should have been raid bosses, or even just entirely unbeatable bosses entirely, and that a concept should have been grasped that maybe we can only capture these enemies or contain these enemies but never truly destroy them. Gaul was an extremely lackluster boss fight, and in my opinion it totally dumbed down the entire power complex that was built up for this character throughout the entire storyline, only for you to defeat him in a 3 to 5 minute boss fight, even on your own, with no NPC help or any form of outside help whatsoever. This runs true with Panoptes, the primary enemy of the Curse of Osiris DLC. He is this large, Vex, time-altering robo-demon that when he first appears to you seems unbeatable and is addressed as unbeatable. When he first attacks you, Osiris tells you simply to run. And whenever I saw that, the first thing that came into both me and my friend that I was playing the campaign with for the first time with's head was, this better be a raid boss and not just a mission boss that we beat in one attempt, because this guy looks badass, this guy looks fun to play against, this guy looks immensely powerful, and it would be extremely disappointing if we're able to beat him in just a few seconds or a few minutes. Spoilers ahead, whenever Panoptes reappears later on in the story and kills Sagira, which is Osiris's ghost, or steals her at least, and there's seemingly nothing that the player character can do about it at all, this feeling of, this guy's pretty powerful, this guy better be a raid boss, came into our heads once again. And then upon reaching towards the end of the main story, where you play the root mind, or against the root mind, you fight the root mind, which is this giant Vex Cyclops that rotates around an axis, and the axis is the building that you were in, and so it's a very fun boss fight. I enjoyed it a lot, and so I'm thinking, okay, if these are the bosses that we're facing in the story, hopefully Panoptes is saved for the raid. Upon reaching the final mission and fighting Panoptes and beating him in a battle, although the battle was epic and you did have Osiris's help, and Osiris is allegedly the most powerful guardian ever to live, it was still a lackluster ending to a character that I thought had a lot more potential. It is built up to you along the entire storyline of Curse of Osiris, from Osiris himself, who is allegedly the most powerful guardian to ever have existed, as well as all the other NPCs around you, that Panoptes is this all-powerful being that you're going to need extreme amounts of help to go against, or even stand a chance against, and then you're able to beat him by yourself with the help of Osiris. That just seems like it's a juxtaposition to me. I get that you're fighting alongside one of the most powerful guardians to ever have lived, and I get that, in essence, although it's never been explicitly stated, we are one of the most powerful guardians to ever have existed, but this is still an enemy that was presented as this doomsday device of an enemy, and you kill it in a 3 to 5 minute boss fight. That woos me as something that sort of kills the experience and kills the lethality of the game and the boss altogether, simply because it requires little to no challenge at all to defeat something that was supposedly a very difficult enemy. Also, the entire concept of what is happening within this infinite forest through this DLC and through most of the content, to me, is just laziness. The entire basis of the great amounts of content that are supposed to come with this expansion is that it is extremely repetitive content, and even the characters in the game acknowledge this. One of the strikes is literally just a reskinned version of one of the main story missions, and when you beat it, the ghost even acknowledges that he remembers doing this before. Now granted, it's to set up a joke, as Sagira had controlled your ghost shell when you beat it the first time, so it's to set up a little joke and a little happy-go-lucky interaction between characters, but it encompassed all of my thoughts as I was progressing through the strike. My friends and I, as we played it for the first time, were all repeatedly saying, I remember doing this in a story mission. Why are they passing this off as a strike? This is literally a reskin story mission. And alongside each of these flaws that come with the story missions and the strikes and the way that everything in this expansion has played out is the fact that there are the ups to this expansion. I enjoyed the story mode a lot. I enjoyed the amount of content that came with it. I enjoyed that I was not able to beat the story mode in about 20 minutes as I was able to do in Dark Below and House of Wolves and the vast majority of the expansion content in Destiny 1. I enjoy some of the guns presented in this DLC. However, I think at this point it's beating a dead horse to repeatedly bring back Destiny 1 exotics, because Destiny 1 had a habit of this, and although I kinda liked it, I also kinda hated it, because it displays a large amount of laziness when a good percentage, in fact, I would say about 30 to 40% of the exotics that come with each expansion pack are just revitalized Destiny 1 exotics. I think that if you're going to release that many, you need to release a lot more original exotics because they're a lot of fun. I thoroughly enjoy using the grenade launcher, the colony, that spawns little insect grenades that chase enemies down and blow up on top of them. To me, that is the most fun exotic to come out of this expansion. However, whenever I see Crimson, the hand cannon that is essentially a reskinned Red Death, it sort of irks me to an extent, because I feel as though, why am I just using this whenever they could have just brought back Red Death? If you're going to be lazy, just be full-on lazy. That being said, I cannot stress enough when I say that what this game needs is some totally off-the-wall shit. This game needs for the creators to sit down and say what could totally change the way that you play the game. There are only 3 classes in this game, and if you can come up with something that turns the whole game on its head, you'll make this a lot more fun. I've loved Destiny through and through for 3.5 years, but it is time for a revolution.